'cause I love this land. It takes my breath away.
Welcome to Texas 10.
Hi, I'm Steve.
And I'm Melissa.
And we're here to talk a little bit about Texas.
I love Texas, Steve. I am a native Texan, born and raised in San Antonio, and he wishes he was.
I'm close. I've spent 50 of my 63 years in Texas, and I feel like a Texan.
You are a Texan, Steve.
Thank you. So about 5 years ago, we set off on an adventure.
My dad loved Bob Wills and listened to Western Swing, and that's what I grew up on. And Mom and Dad went to Bob Wills Days in Turkey, Texas. And I said to Steve one day, we need to go to Turkey. So we did.
Right. And on our way to Turkey, Texas, we stopped in Wichita Falls for the night. And the next morning, we headed out and we stopped in Vernon, Texas, and went to the Herring Cafe.
It was awesome. You know, there's something about a small town cafe. All the locals were there, all the men who are farmers. And what I love the most is that the waitress knew every one of their names and their order.
What I loved the most was their hash browns.
They were good.
They were great hash browns. There's something about a grill that's been seasoned for decades that you just cannot replicate in a new restaurant.
That's 100%. Yeah.
Right. And so over breakfast, we started to talk.
And you know, I was a teacher and I taught fourth grade Texas history and loved it. And I had this little project where my kids went and picked up Texas historical markers. And so we're sitting there and I said, Steve, we ought to do something like that. And Steve said, he's a lawyer. He said, why don't we go to the county seats, the county courthouses?
And so Texas has 254 counties. That's more counties than any other state. And I think the next closest is Georgia, which has about 179. Yeah. So as sort of an organizing principle, we said, we are lifelong Texans, but we really want to get to know the state. And so we're going to go to all 254 counties.
We're on our way.
Right.
We're very close.
We're close. We've been to 227 of them.
As of today.
And we've got those 27 more to knock off, and we think we'll get that done sometime this year, right?
We are going to get it done this year.
We are going to get it done. And some of them, for instance, we haven't officially counted Dallas County, even though we lived there for 28 years.
Well, you know, because you can't just go to the county seat. And I know there are people that go and take a picture of the courthouse, but you've got to get to know the town. And so even there's a lot that we've been to that we've gone back to be very intentional about getting to know that town and those people.
Right. And so we discussed this on our drive out to Turkey. I just love saying that, Turkey, Texas. Yeah. And we got out to Bob Wills Day and had Bob Wills Day isn't just a day, it's actually a whole weekend. And they've got the very best in Western Swing bands there. There's the successors to the Texas Playboys. Jody Nix and his group were out there.
Well, and I love the youth fiddlers contest. There's nothing like seeing a kid in a fiddler. As a fiddler. Hey, do you know the difference between a fiddle and a violin?
What's the difference between a fiddle and a violin?
You carry a fiddle in a flour sack.
Okay. Well, I think they actually had cases. So
I think they might have. But.
Right. But they were great. I mean, you were talking about 10-year-olds that could play San Antonio Rose, all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you go from the 10-year-olds to, now we're pushing our age a little bit, but there were 80-year-olds two-stepping and waltzing at the dance that night, and we just had a fantastic time.
We cut a little rug.
And I actually believe Ken Burns' group was there filming their country and segment for their country and western documentary.
That's right, they were, yeah.
And so we saw all of that, got a little bit inspired, and set out on this journey to visit all 254 counties. And like Melissa said, we've bitten off quite a bit of that. And so what we're doing now is we're trying to bring that to the people, if you will.
Well, you know, like we said, we love Texas. And Texas is just larger than life. Everyone talks about how big Texas is. And so many people in Texas never venture out of their region that they live in. And you just are so surprised at all the different things that you see.
Right. And so you hear, like Melissa said, you hear Texas is big. What you don't hear as much, but is just as true, is Texas is so varied. I like to say that we don't have the Rocky Mountains. We don't have the beaches that Florida has. We don't have the forests that maybe California has. But we have something close to all of those things. And we've seen a lot of it, and we'll never stop seeing it, I don't think. And so we've traveled the back roads, and we felt like, you know what? Let's talk about what it's like to be in Texas. And you'll find on our website, which is texas10.com, a fuller explanation of that. Our field guide to Texas, which will tell you a lot about particular places in Texas. But what we want to do is do 10-minute segments, because we know you're busy. And each week, or each time we drop a segment, just learn a little bit about a particular part of Texas and go from there. If you want to know more, you can go to the website. There's all sorts of things on texas10.com. We've got all the social media channels and whatnot we'll talk about. But Texas, there's just so much to learn and so much to appreciate.
Right. There's great history. There's great culture. There are great people. I think that's my favorite thing, is when we meet the people in the towns.
All right. So who's the most memorable person you would say you met?
Oh, wow. Let me think about that.
Well, you're thinking about that.
Actually, I know.
Okay.
Just recently, I mean, it was a small town, and we met a young girl who, in a big city, you'd call her a barista. But she was telling us quite colorful stories about the people in her town. And so I can't really go into those stories, but let's just suffice it to say they were memorable.
For me, it was James, our river guide, when we went down the Rio Grande in the Big Bend country. Yeah. And he was just the most chill dude. He was the senior river guide there. He'd been doing it the longest out of all the river guides. And it was towards the end of the season, and we were lucky. It was just us. And we just had a great day, and I just learned a lot about the Big Bend country and just a different way of life.
He was very patient, too.
He was patient. We weren't the best rowers. So.
No, and I loved the guy that we fished with. When we went to Rockport, I've always wanted to fly fish. I wasn't really thinking about fly fishing in the ocean, and he was awesome, had great stories, and again, patient.
He was patient. Yes, I believe that we ordered our fish at a restaurant that night.
Yeah, we did not catch any. Mm-hmm.
All right, so real quick before we wrap up, Melissa, let's talk just briefly about what you learned about Texas.
You know, I think what I learned, I keep coming back to the people, and you know, people have their ideas about different regions in Texas. And I think you're surprised that you're going to like an area that you never thought of. Like, I love West Texas. And when I set out on this venture, if you had said, let's go to West Texas, I would have said, you've really kind of lost your mind. There's much more to do. The other thing is I've learned that small towns have such great character. I love cities. I'm a city girl, but I've fallen in love with a small town.
I'm right there with you. And I guess what I would say is, first of all, I knew Texas had a lot of land. We have a lot of land. We're not a crowded people in Texas. No. But I've learned to appreciate what that land gives us. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like you said, we're city people. We grew up in San Antonio, spent most of our adult lives in Dallas and Waco. But just being out and seeing all of that and getting an appreciation for the food, the energy, you know, all of that comes from the land has given me a real appreciation for it.
And the music. I love the music of Texas.
Well, we started by saying, let's go see Bob Wills Day, and I think that's a great way to end it. We're here at Texas 10. We're going to keep dropping these episodes. We're going to start talking about things that are specific. We hope that you'll like us, subscribe to us, do all the social media things, but most of all, just tune in and share us and get to know a little bit more about Texas. So I'm Steve.
And I'm Melissa.
And keep watching Texas 10.
About you, and I love this land. it takes my breath away. From the Palo Duro to the Gulf Coast plain, from the heart of the hill country to the piney wood shade, I love this land. It takes my breath away.